Hi, my name is Helen Baker, and I am reviewing Wheaton, Illinois, a town in the western suburbs of Chicago that I have lived in since May of 2020. Wheaton was originally established in 1859, but wasn't incorporated as a village until 1874. Here I have two maps, one from that initial village application, and then of incorporated Wheaton from 2022. The population of Wheaton is 53,970. Predominantly white. In fact, 83% white is significant, particularly in comparison to surrounding areas. The African American population of 3.9% has been the slowest to grow in comparative terms to other races as well as surrounding towns. Employment, here we have 51% of Wheaton's working members of the community work for private companies. Some of those large employers are Wheaton College itself, Fermi Labs, the National Accelerator Lab in Batavia, just outside of Wheaton. Northwest Medicine certainly is a large employer in the area. 30% are self-employed through incorporated businesses. 9% work for a private or nonprofit. I make up part of that demographic. 7% work at the local, state, or federal level, and 3% are self-employed but not through incorporated businesses. Here are some of the larger employers in the area. 63.1% employment rate in Wheaton, as the national average goes. That's pretty good. 5.6% are living in poverty, unfortunately. We're pretty divided in terms of the most recent census. The data reports that were a typically even split between women and men as individuals identified on their census documents. The largest percent of the population is actually over the age of 18 and younger than 65, so that's making up our workforce. It is a working community. However, the median household income when compared to Illinois is significantly larger. Churches have historically played a role in Wheaton, and there are 45 congregations within the city limits, with an additional 30 in unincorporated Wheaton. The crime rates are interesting. Wheaton has relatively low crime if you're looking at the crime index as compared to the greater Chicago area or the state of Illinois itself. When looking at the specific crimes committed over the last 10 years, really the only area of significant, really jumps off the page at you, significant growth has been in the area, crimes involving rape. But in terms of property and other violent crimes, it still remains relatively low in comparative terms. When I was looking to better understand the environmental side of this community, I was looking for information, particularly about the waterways. I mean, Wheaton was founded in a really interesting marshy area of the state. And unfortunately, if we're looking at this map here, which is from the EPA and is looking specifically at the watershed that affects Wheaton, these red lines are the various branches of the DuPage River, and in red, they're in red because they are significantly impacted in one way or another. If we're just taking the one closest to Wheaton, the Middle West Branch, we see a degraded habitat, low oxygen, bacteria, and other microbes. Our water source is Lake Michigan, and since the 1990s, the city of Chicago has actually taking care of our water for us and has done so, specifically looking to ensure that lead and copper are not deposited into the water or removed from the water before consumption. And so far that has, the reports on drinking water have been good. There are both formal and informal institutions that actually create that sense of community here in Wheaton and create opportunities for people to engage with each other. Some of the more formal institutions, Wheaton College certainly has a deep history. Billy Graham was a known evangelical alum of Wheaton College. His presence is large on campus. There's a museum, there's a hall, there's also a scholarship program dedicated to his name. Interestingly, with the predominant religion in Wheaton being both Catholicism and evangelical Protestantism, there's also the Theosophical Society, which is an institution dedicated to religious truth. And so the idea is actually very inclusive, very accepting recognition of all the world's religions and the manner in which humans relate to these ideas and concepts of religious practice, religious belief. So the grounds and library are open to the public of the Theosophical Society, actually beautiful grounds, and they host a festival every year, the Theosofest, that is a large community gathering as well. And more informal institutions, although I would think Cubs and White Sox fans would say quite formal institutions. I think when I think about the glue within communities and how people of different socioeconomic standings and different races and relate to each other in the greater Chicago area, but certainly in Wheaton, I would argue that Cubs fans and White Sox fans really do find each other through their love of their teams. So I definitely wanted to include them here because I know, I mean, I would never say this, but as a Red Sox fan, I know what the love for the Red Sox does for Boston boroughs, and it's certainly what I've observed here in Wheaton as well. Here are many of the different community events now. There are no, I mean, the city has in the last 2 years certainly tried to address diversity and inclusivity. They've made statements, but in actual action, very little has been overtly done to address requests for Pride Week or events that specifically address race and racism in our community. However, there are other community events that certainly are working to try to bring all members of our community together. Here are some of the few. My analysis of Wheaton as a good community, if I'm looking at Ohio State's list here, I would say safety-wise, predominantly Wheaton is a safe community. There are certain areas that are less safe, but still, when compared to the national average or state average, it's lower. Goods and services, there are many different opportunities for goods and services, certainly affordable goods and services, and in general, the character of the community, even though it is the household income is significantly higher than the Illinois average. I think with the presence of a lot of different educational opportunities in the area, Wheaton College is not the only secondary educational institution in the area, but also all the different churches. There is a community of giving and support that certainly also informs, I think, values and goals. I had difficulty finding a direct answer when I was looking for a whole person evaluation, but I think with the efforts from local organizations to address a multitude of needs in the community, the access to quality health care in the community, the access to well supported, well funded public schools, and a variety of goods and services. I would argue that the whole person is addressed. I would say that the interactions of our community members are predictable. I think certainly there are areas that the town is aware of in terms of areas of improvement and areas where hard work is necessary. I think Wheaton is certainly not unique in that. If we look at many communities in the United States today, I hope to see efforts in our school district in particular to address questions and ideas of diversity and inclusivity in the curriculum that is chosen, in the way we teach, in the information young people have access to certainly would help, but also directly addressing the specific needs of the 5% of our population that lives below the poverty level. There's only so much our food banks and our other nonprofit organizations that really do work to help give people access to affordable housing and such. There's only so much they can do. And if as a community we could come together acknowledging what we all need to be able to live happy, healthy, safe lives in our own little bubble here, it would be good. Well, thank you. It looks like I've run a little bit over. My references are included, and I hope you guys check out the Theosophical Society's YouTube video. It's an interesting juxtaposition for the other religious organizations here in town. Thank you. Have a good night.